weekly, I can put multiple. Oh, this is like the party size. Ah, okay. Gotcha. And if you click another one, it immediately deselect the other one because it means you can only do one of them. Okay, that's pretty good. That's pretty cute. I think that's a good way of making the UI as well. Weekly mesos earned. It's got the number here as well. Just to do it per character or what? Yeah, per character. Okay. Star Force. How does it notice Star Force? .5 per all stat. I don't. Why has that not moved with the times? All stat is never 8.5. It's like a hard thing to get out of people's system, though. Early game, all stat is probably like 15. Mid game, it's probably like 10. And then late game and end game, it's probably like closer to 11. It's never 8.5. It was 8.5 like 6 years ago when Flames came out, or wherever they came out. But it hasn't been that number in so long. But somehow it's still just, it still sticks. I mean, it's a small thing to adjust, but it's just like an interesting thing how that you just stay for so long. Export, import. So all stat is super good. It's about 10 good. I think you can objectively say that it's super good. You just have to know how much it translates to. I don't know what this total Star Force is. How do you get to the Star Force? So the item's bonus stats attained by flames. Is Star Force coming later or? Yeah, I guess that's maybe something to add later. But yeah, I think there's definitely like a depth to flame score as well to be changed, and I would alter the numbers a bit as well. So I'm not sure about this. This part is probably a bit outdated, like the maths, but the infrastructure is really nice. Projected level. I assume that this is kind of like Wacky Beans' stuff, where you. And I assume that it only calculates the numbers from the moment you actually have access to it, right? Wait, January 225. If I'm still under 235, I wouldn't be able to be a higher level in January by doing an extra daily that I don't have access to yet under that level, right? Yeah, it's just adding the EXP. It's not checking whether I have the level to be able to do the daily. So that's an extra thing, extra conditional that has to be added into this calculator as well. I should be able to click, I'm going to do this, but I'm going to do this as soon as I can, right? Not, I'm going to start doing this today, even though I don't have access to it yet in the content. But I think that's a pretty easy, like if, level equals 234 or lower number, then this is reduced to 0, right? Because otherwise it takes too much of the user to enter it properly to get the proper result, right? So that's probably one little tweak to do on this. But this is cool. I like the general UI. It's like very minimalistic and very useful. Like if I have a level 200 character, I shouldn't be able to select this even. Like this should be 0. This should be a flat line because this is level 245 content, right? This is 250, this is 255, same thing. But it would just be writing that rule for all of these things and adding it to them. I assume it's the same for this, right? Yeah. Because otherwise, like, oh, look, I could get from 200 to 250 in, in 1 month. All I have to do is my grandest dailies on a level 200. Damn, that's wild. But I think from what I see that most of the time went into the Meso thing. I think I like this design a lot. It's got all the bosses, and just working with pictures just makes so much more sense. Just the first letter. Click again to proceed anyway. Which character am I selecting now? I click save. I actually accidentally added the same. Okay. Is it possible to delete a character? Uh-huh. Wait. That does not work. Editing the name does not work. Okay. No, that's pretty small stuff. So I would just have to delete this character? No, that just deletes the... That deletes the ability to... Yeah, still some kinks to work out. It's good to have somebody like me who's just can ruin your shit. So the delete feature. So the add, the delete, and the edit feature. I think that's a good thing. And then the other thing I would say for EXP, make sure you have the check on the actual levels to see if it can even do the content at the level of the character, right? Might be a little bit of work in there for the algorithm, but that would make this, I think, ironclad in terms of the project at level, which is nice because you're basically taking that away from needing to go to Maple Ranks and then not that Maple Ranks is bad or anything, but it's just like a different thing that you're using for a different purpose, right? It's kind of like in between what Wacky Beans has and what Maple Ranks has. And then for gear, yeah, I don't know what I would adjust these numbers a little bit, and I'd probably adjust these numbers based on the level of the character. So you want to have like an early game, a mid game, and an early game, yeah, mid game, and a late and end game multiplier based on the level of the characters roughly. And this is like a pet peeve, but yeah, 8.5 for all stat just makes absolutely no sense. Like that's never a correct number. So that we need to make some adjustments to the numbers, but that's like a tiny thing to do, of course. Maybe my flame score calculator probably needs some adjustment as well. I think mine has been outdated as well. This I like a lot. This general idea of just like adding the bosses to You see the money. I personally wouldn't use it because I don't play the game in this way, but I think for a lot of people this would be very useful. Guides. Keyboard layouts is something that's extremely important. 30-year-old game. Well, it's like Ipstory is a 20-year-old game, not 30. Nexon is 30-year-old, but Ipstory is a 20-year-old game. But yeah, this is where, essentially, well, I'm not gonna like critique your special guides. This is pretty personal on how people like to use their keyboards because most people's keyboards don't look exactly like this either. So that's probably useful. Tier lists. Tier list for what? I guess I don't know what this is a... So I guess this just takes the aggregate of the individual tier lists. Yeah, I don't know what this is a tier list for. So if you're going to have different tier lists here, I think it's a good idea to have like different types of tier lists here. Like what's a good starting character for someone with no hands, for example, who hasn't played in a long time. What's a good boss mule, right? Putting some kind of filter here because I've been trying to do something for a while. This adds like... Because there's effort put in here, but I feel like this adds no actual value. And this is kind of why I hate tier lists. Because then people are just going to assume that these classes are just shit. Like all of these classes are shit. And that these classes are amazing no matter what. And these classes are shit no matter what. And they're going to come in game and they're going to play this character and not like it. And someone is going to come by with this class and blow them out of the water. And they're going to be like, your tier list is meaningless, right? I think there needs to be like a level of... What is the tier list for? At what stage and at what content does this tier list apply? Because you can't just make a blanket tier list for like all the game, for all the people, for all the content. It's just, you can't do that. There's too many variables, right? Too many variables in classes, too many variables in what players like, and too many variables in the content that you're describing for. But other than that, yeah, I like the layout a lot. Dashboard is like your general thing, and then calendar has with events in. Yeah, that can be very useful. Yeah, I've redesigned my calendar a few times. It's definitely not where I want it to be. Who loves cats the most tier list? Wild Hunter, all the way on the top, you know. Yeah, and I see here weekly reset, but there's 3 weekly resets, right? There's a Sunday to Monday weekly reset for some content. There's a Tuesday to Wednesday reset for some content, and there's a Wednesday to Thursday reset for some content. Weekly reset events, weekly reset boss, but there's also Sunday to Monday reset for some other content. Which again, it's not like against you. The game is just very stupid and complicated like that. Friday 20th, that's the current day. Yeah. You can just click this and click back on today. Okay, that's pretty cool. Miracle time. If I click that, does it give me the... Oh, yeah, okay. For this, what I do, and I don't know if you want to do that. For this, what I do is for my event calendar, I do have a link on it where like the link takes you to the patch note line. If people want to read the details and see the things, they can all see it like that. I don't know if that's something that you want to add. There's probably a million ways that you can do a calendar, so you know, you do you, of course. I see a lot of 1As. I don't know if that's going to confuse versus clarify things. It's probably just how things are written. You know, I don't want to be overcritical because there's already way more than I could ever make, of course. So you got close to hyperbear. Maintaining given some class of outdated gameplay, which is its users are still Yup. Japan within game, developers may have bits in Korea, paramount balance classes around interactive, regular service in Korea, not heroic service GMS. Some advantages and disadvantages the Korean server do not have, or mostly advantages. So taking up to 10 to 20% differences in strength between what the developers intended and where they actually are in GMS. +1 maximum attack speed. That's +2 maximum attack speed, actually. Boss damage familiars and healing familiars, just anything to do with familiars. Higher server latency. -7 seconds had are unattainable in heroic server. We have level 3 link skills. We have Gollux. We have Commercy progression gear. I don't know the entire list, but this list is definitely a lot longer if you really go over all the differences. It is all subject to change moving towards as the developer's vision for GMS continues to evolve. And there are actually developers, there should be at least one developer actually working at Nexon America right now as well for the Go West team, yeah. Average as a myriad of benefits. Has myriad benefits interact? I feel like a myriad of, right? It's not just myriad. Pros and cons. Most you could do is somewhat informed of the trade-offs and not take a complete shot in the dark. If you're looking for some initial inspiration, take a look at this tier list. Well, you're saying like don't take a complete shot in the dark, and you say look at the tier list, but then your tier list is a complete shot in the dark, right? Because there's nothing mentioned here of pros and cons. And I know that's a lot of work, and that's mainly where my project has also stalled and not really gotten as nearly even as close to something as producible as MVP as this, right? So I'm not trying to knock it for that, but it is. Oh, can I go back? Yeah. That is basically kind of a 7 dark. Criteria used to rate each class include how much of an advantage it has in GMS. Oh, it's hard to qualify, but if you can do that properly, that's definitely a strong measure, yeah. How modern its aesthetics are. How much fun it is to play both alone and in groups. Okay, I feel like this one is pretty objective. I feel like this one is very subjective, and this one is also very subjective. So that it's going to be tricky with a tier list if you introduce so much subjectivity into it. But I guess if it's for this tier list specifically, I would put these criteria here. I would put these like on top of the tier list and make sure like this is what was kept in mind with the production of this tier list specifically, instead of having that in the guide. Most people will hopefully check the guide and then find the tier list through there if they read this properly. But if they just click the tier list because they want to see the tier list, this tier list is immediately going to lack context. But there is context, but you've kind of like hidden it here. So I would try to integrate those a little bit better. No tier list or set of ratings can be perfect to fit your exact needs. Of course not, yeah. Some things we often don't or can't take into account are learning curve and skill ceiling. I think this is a thing learning curve is something you can take into account, but skill ceiling I think is something you should 100% take into account, right? This is where with my ranking for my classes, I try to, I had to dumb it down a lot. It used to be way more complex, but it's not workable with 50 classes. It's just like, do you need high inputs, and just like a binary. It's not great, but you have to start somewhere. Do you need a lot of funding, right? Is the mobbing just like average or above, or is it just a little bit below average? Like, is the crowdfunding average or above, or is it low, right? What is the role of the class? Maybe the burst rotation will already give you a little bit more insight. If someone wants a more relaxed character that doesn't do anything, they probably don't want something that is just DPM all the time, because that typically implies also that you have a higher key input, right? Or if people just want a warrior, something like this, but then looking nicer, of course. Of course, personally, I think this is better because I made it because I think it's better. But I think you can add that to it. It's not easy. Yeah. Sound effects, voice acting. Yeah, okay. I think that's totally fair. Extra cost for class-specific gear and items. That's fair too. Oh, also, it should probably mention, because I don't know if this is specifically for heroic or for interactive, or if there's any kind of difference between that, right? because it does look like it's for GMS. But from this, I can't actually tell if there's a difference in that, because there could be, right? Because you're saying extra cost for class-specific gear or items. That could be because of the interactive trade prices. But if a lot of people are going to look at this, because most of the community is for heroic, they might think like, huh? What do you mean class-specific gear prices? How satisfying the class feels when unleashing burst versus off burst. Yeah, that's very subjective, yeah. How good the class will be 2 years from now. Bro, if you can tell me how good a class is going to actually be 6 months from now, and you can already take all of the Korean test server things into account, then you're already some kind of autistic savant level genius. I would already be shocked. But yeah, don't try to pick a class because it's going to be really good 2 years from now, or because it's really good right now, and only pick it for that reason, because 6 months from now 20 other classes might have surpassed it, because the balance changes. What your individual progression goals, biases, and preferences are. I think that's a mistake. I think what a person's individual progression goal, biases, and preferences are should be the main thing, and probably of all these things, maybe the only thing that you try to put into a tier list. I feel like a tier list should be made to the user, not for objective number, because you are going to, or maybe make 2 separate ones, because if a person picks a character because it does the most damage, but they don't like how the character plays at all, they're not going to get as far as they pick a character that's 1% less damage, but it's their playstyle. They're going to get way further, and they're going to get stronger, and they're going to overexceed their potential way more than if they picked the character was just slightly stronger on paper. And that's, I think, the main problem with tier lists, is if you just go by how strong the character is on paper, most people who play the game will never reach their full potential with their character, because they're going to overvalue the mathematical, right? And then, because you could add on to that, like these classes could be performing at 100%, and these could all be performing at like 99.9 to 99.1%, and then these lowest could be performing at like 99%. But that doesn't show from a tier list, right? A tier list just shows an ordinal scale, right? But ordinal has nothing to do with how big the differences are. Or these could be performing at 1%, and these could be performing at 100%. And then the tier list like this could be insanely valuable, because you're basically telling like, hey, you could pick this class if you want to, but you're just never going to be achieving anything, and you're going to have to work 100 times as hard as these people to reach the same things, right? Then a tier list is super, super valuable, because then someone needs to know what they're getting themselves into. But again, I can't tell from this tier list how big the differences are. All I can tell that there are differences big enough to categorize. And that's always a dangerous thing with a tier list, to make sure that you're, preempting that or somehow adding that value to it. So I would put a little bit more context towards the playlist. The tier list. Because there are too many variables to consider, except that you will most likely not find the best main character for your needs on your first, second, or even third try. Yes. So pick the first thing that resonates with you even slightly, meet new friends, and observe how much they enjoy playing their mains. As you progress, you'll learn about the game systems, which will help you speed through early phases your next time you choose a new character, and there is a lot to learn. Well, I'll just continue reading first. It's a franchise. If you stop having fun, stop playing altogether. Come back when the game offers something exciting for you again. Yeah, and a character will be a very strong bossing mule, even if you do like it for a bit, but just not for all the way. It'll be a very strong bossing mule. It'll help you fund your account. It'll help you fund your next characters. Maybe you could do exchange carries if you want to speed it up. If you don't want to speed it up, you can just do it at your own pace. Again, yeah, so here is like your individual progress, bias, and preferences are. We're not going to take that into account in a tier list, but also like you're not going to find your main character, so just pick something based on your bias and your progression goals or your preferences. But so it's I think you agree with me, but you're kind of contradicting, or you're agreeing here that the tier list is actually not useful for people, because here you say like what you should be picking in is based on what appeals to you, and probably pick the wrong one. But then the tier list is supposed to be like to pick the right one. But this could be like just a disagreement on the philosophy on it, you know. But I think just making multiple tier lists with like different priorities would be good. But you'll just, I'm sure you'll add more as the website develops. But yeah, again, like it's pretty good. I like this. One thing, this goes way more in depth, right? And you're trying to just get a baseline here. I understand that. Right now with Hyperburn, I also like the ability to just make a Hyperburn. You know, Terra Blink it to 200. Get used to the 5th job a little bit. Don't pick your rewards at level 200 or 210 or 215 or those yet. Try to do as much as you can without those rewards. Play the character a bit, do a little bit of the low level bosses, and see if you can get a little bit of a feel for the character. And if you like it a decent amount, then just continue. If you don't like it, just delete it. Wait 24 hours. Work on your Legion for your account. And then just make another one. Make another Hyperburn 24 hours later, like 1 day, 2 days later. And just try again with another character that you think you might enjoy. And if you do that to like the top 2 or 3 character that were on your list, sure, it'll take you like a week out of your entire event deleting characters and remaking. But with Terra Blink, you can instantly get back to 200 because the 5th job has to feel good for your character. Because 5th job is such a huge part of your account. Because 6th job just builds on the 5th job, right? And that might take a week out. But if you're trying to play for the super, super long term, that week early on might seem like you're getting behind a lot. But that week is a lot early on. But like later on, the week is nothing. So taking that week to make sure that you could definitely find your main or have it way closer to the main character that you like to play, I think is actually a really valuable thing to do. But yeah, I mean, I like it a lot. Yeah, if you ever want to like cooperate on something, or you want some input, or you need a nerd, an obtuse nerd to look at things and critique it into oblivion, or you know, showcase things to my oh, is this back? Can I edit it now? No, delete. No, I just delete this thing again. Then feel free to reach out to me. I don't know who it was. Monkey Technology. Definitely like, yeah, really good baseline on something and good foundation on something. So yeah, I appreciate a lot that you're making things for the community. But yeah, if there's any way that you want to climb on something or get some feedback or you want to reach out, always feel free to do so. All right, good shit.